The text that destroyed Arden Solis's life was sent at exactly 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday. A flirty message meant for his dinner date that accidentally went to Celine Corin, CEO of the pharmaceutical company that held his daughter's life in their hands. His stomach dropped as he stared at his phone in horror, realizing his catastrophic mistake. Looking forward to tonight. Can't stop thinking about your smile and wondering what it would be like to kiss you. Arden had 5 minutes of panic before his doorbell rang. 5 minutes to contemplate how he just torpedoed his last chance to get his 8-year-old daughter Nora into the experimental treatment program that could save her life. Celine Corin, known throughout the business world as the Ice Queen, had personally driven to his modest suburban home after receiving his message. As he approached the door with trembling hands, Arden knew this wasn't just embarrassing, it was potentially devastating. Without Corin Therabiotech's treatment program, Nora's rare immune disorder would continue to progress, and the single father would lose the only person left in his world who mattered. When he opened the door, Celine Corin stood on his porch looking nothing like her polished magazine covers. Her normally perfect locks were slightly windblown, and her dark brown eyes were wide with an emotion Arden couldn't identify. Her deep bronze skin seemed to glow in the afternoon light, but something about her seemed almost human, vulnerable even. "Mr. Solis," she said, her voice surprisingly soft. "I believe we need to discuss the message you sent me." Arden felt his face burn with shame, warmth flooding his rich mahogany skin. "Ms. Corin, I am so incredibly sorry. That text was never meant—" She held up one perfectly manicured hand, her bronze fingers elegant and steady. "May I come in? I think we have more to discuss than just an errant text message." Confused and terrified, Arden stepped aside to let her enter his home. Toys were scattered across the living room floor, and dishes from breakfast still sat in the sink. He'd been so focused on preparing for tomorrow's meeting with Corin Therabiotech, his last hope for getting Nora into their treatment program, that housekeeping had fallen by the wayside. "Daddy, who's here?" Nora appeared in the hallway, her small frame swimming in a too large unicorn pajama set, her once thick, coily hair now thin from treatments. Her warm brown skin had taken on a grayish undertone from illness, but despite everything, her smile still lit up the room. What happened next left Arden speechless. Celine Corin, the woman whose ruthless business tactics had earned her the nickname the Ice Queen, knelt down to Nora's level. "Hello there, I'm Celine. I work at the company that makes medicine." Her voice had transformed completely, warm and gentle, where moments before it had been controlled and professional. "Are you the lady who can help make me better?" Nora asked with the directness only. "Children possess." Celine's composed expression faltered for just a moment, her dark eyes glistening. "I'm certainly going to try," she said, and Arden could have sworn he saw her eyes glisten. "Would it be okay if I talked to your dad for a little while?" "Okay," Nora said softly, "but you have really pretty hair. I used to have thick hair too, before the medicine made it fall out." Celine's breath caught visibly. "And it will grow back even more beautiful than before," she promised, her voice thick with emotion. "I know it will." After Nora reluctantly returned to her room, Celine turned to Arden with an intensity that made him nervous. Her hands were trembling slightly, he noticed, though she quickly clasped them together. "Your daughter is the reason you've been trying to meet with my company for the past 4 months." "Yes," Arden admitted, running his hand over his close-cropped hair. "Nora has Lysera immunopathy. Your company's experimental treatment is showing the most promise, but we've been denied entry into the trial 3 times. Tomorrow's appeal was our last chance." Celine's gaze traveled around the modest home, taking in the family photos on every surface, the medical bills stacked on the counter, the calendar on the wall marked with hospital appointments in different colored markers. "You're raising her alone," she observed, picking up a framed photo of Arden and Nora at what looked like a school event. Her mother died when Nora was 4. Car accident. The words still felt raw even after 4 years. Look, about that text. The text is why I'm here, Selene interrupted, her voice suddenly businesslike again. Mr. Solace, I received your message during a board meeting. I excused myself to read your file, and what I found disturbed me greatly. She pulled out her tablet and showed him his application history, her bronze fingers scrolling through page after page of denials. Your case should have been prioritized months ago. Someone buried it deliberately. Arden felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. What? Why would anyone do that? Selene's expression hardened, her jaw tightening. That's exactly what I intend to find out. But first, I want to hear about Nora, not from a clinical file, but from her father. Arden ran his hand through his hair, the stress of the past years visible in the premature gray at his temples. At 36, he looked older, the weight of being both mother and father to a seriously ill child etched into the lines around his warm hazel eyes. His faded jeans and simple blue button-down shirt were a stark contrast to Selene's polished appearance, her tailored charcoal suit fitting her like armor. I don't even know where to begin, he said, gesturing for her to sit at the small kitchen table. Coffee? Selene nodded, setting her designer handbag on the chair beside her. Please, black. Up close, Arden noticed details about her that never appeared in business magazines. A small scar near her right eyebrow, the slight asymmetry of her smile, the way she tucked one of her locks behind her ear when she was thinking. At 42, Selene Corinne had built an empire, her name synonymous with breakthrough treatments and uncompromising standards. But sitting in his cluttered kitchen, she seemed more approachable than her reputation suggested. Nora was always healthy until she turned 6, Arden began, placing a mug of coffee in front of Selene. The cup had a faded "World's Best Dad" message that Nora had picked out for Father's Day. She came home from school with a fever one day. We thought it was just a cold, but it never went away. Then came the joint pain, the rashes, the constant infections. His voice caught. 3 doctors, and 6 months later, we finally got the diagnosis: visceral immunopathy. Selene listened intently, her dark eyes never leaving his face as Arden described the rare autoimmune disorder that caused Nora's immune system to attack her own tissues. He explained the failed treatments, the hospitalizations, the way Nora's once boundless energy had diminished as the disease progressed. The words tumbled out, months and years of fear and frustration finding release. She used to dance, he said softly, showing Selene a photo on his phone of a younger, healthier Nora in a ballet costume, her coils pulled back in a perfect bun, her brown skin glowing with health and joy. She was the star of her recital. Now she gets winded walking to the mailbox. The standard immunosuppressants help with the symptoms but cause other problems. Infections, bone density issues, stunted growth. Your company's targeted therapy is the first real hope we've had. Selene's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly as she studied the photo, zooming in to see Nora's bright smile. And you've been denied entry to the trial 3 times. Yes. First, they said her case wasn't severe enough. Then they said it was too severe. The last rejection just said not eligible, with no explanation. Arden's frustration was evident in every word, his voice rising slightly before he caught himself. Tomorrow's appeal was our last shot. I was going to bring all her medical records, letters from her doctors, character references, anything to convince them. I even wrote a personal letter explaining how much this means to us. Selene's dark eyes flashed with something that looked like anger, a muscle twitching in her jaw. You shouldn't have had to fight this hard. This is exactly what I built Corinthera to prevent. She pulled out her phone and sent a rapid-fire text, her bronze fingers moving with practiced efficiency. I'm having my assistant pull every communication about Nora's case. I want to know exactly who made these decisions and why. Every email, every internal memo, every discussion. That evening, sitting at his kitchen table with one of the most powerful women in the pharmaceutical industry, Arden shared Nora's journey in detail. The devastating diagnosis at age 6, when doctors had given them the news in a sterile office while Nora played with blocks in the corner, oblivious. The failed treatments that left her sicker than before. The mounting medical bills that had forced him to sell their family home and move to this smaller house, selling Sarah's car and most of their furniture. As a high school science teacher, his salary and insurance covered the basics, but the experimental treatments were financially out of reach without the clinical trial. "She's so brave," Arden said, his voice breaking as he showed Celine more photos of Nora before her illness. A vibrant little girl with wild, curly hair pulled into 2 puffs, a mischievous smile lighting up her face as she played in a sprinkler, built sandcastles, blew out birthday candles. She never complains, even on her worst days. When other kids ask why she looks sick, she tells them she's a warrior princess fighting invisible dragons. Celine listened intently, occasionally making notes on her tablet, but more often simply watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. When Nora called out for a glass of water, Arden excused himself. Upon returning, he found Celine standing by the bookshelf, studying a photo of him and Nora at the beach last summer, both of them grinning at the camera, their brown skin sun-warmed and happy despite everything. "She has your eyes," Celine observed softly, tracing the frame with one finger. "And your smile." Then, more businesslike, "Mr. Salas, I'm adding Nora to the treatment program effective immediately. I'll have the paperwork delivered tomorrow." Arden nearly dropped the water glass. "Just like that? But we've been trying for months." Celine's expression darkened, her professional mask slipping back into place. "Yes, and I'll be addressing that internal failure tomorrow. Someone deliberately obstructed your application, and I intend to find out who and why." She closed her tablet with a decisive click. "But that's not your concern. Your concern is Nora, and I promise you she will get the treatment she needs." As the night deepened, Celine revealed something that stunned Arden. "My younger sister had Lysera immunopathy 20 years ago, before there were any effective treatments." Her perfectly composed facade cracked slightly, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "That's why I built Corin Thera Biotech the way I did, to develop treatments for rare diseases that other companies ignore because they're not profitable enough. Because watching Amaris suffer while drug companies refused to invest in research for such a small patient population destroyed my family." "I had no idea," Arden said softly, sitting down across from her again. "Your company bio doesn't mention a sister." "Some things are too personal for corporate websites," Celine replied, a hint of vulnerability in her voice that made her seem suddenly younger, more fragile. "Amaris was 12 when she died. I was 17, about to start college on a full scholarship. I watched her deteriorate over 2 years while our parents bankrupted themselves, trying every experimental treatment they could find. Most were scams. The legitimate research existed, but couldn't get funding." She looked toward Nora's bedroom, her dark eyes glistening. "I promised Amaris in her hospital room the night before she died that I'd find a way to help other children like her. Children like your daughter." Celine's phone buzzed with an incoming message. She glanced at it, her expression shifting from open vulnerability to something harder, colder. "I need to make a call. Do you mind?" Arden gestured toward the back porch. "Take your time." Through the kitchen window, he watched as Celine paced the small wooden deck, her posture rigid as she spoke into her phone. Even from a distance, he could see the transformation. The warm, compassionate woman who had sat at his table was gone, replaced by the formidable CEO whose reputation struck fear into pharmaceutical executives across the country. Her free hand gestured sharply as she spoke, her locks swaying with the force of her movements, her expression intense and unforgiving. When she returned 10 minutes later, some of that intensity still lingered in her eyes. I've just spoken with my head of clinical trials. There appears to have been interference in Nora's case. Someone with a personal agenda. What kind of interference? Arden asked, alarmed, his hands gripping the edge of the table. What does that even mean? Celine hesitated, choosing her words carefully, sitting back down and folding her hands on the table. My ex-husband sits on the board, Lucan Vane. He oversees the clinical trial division. It seems he's been selective about which cases receive approval, particularly cases that I've shown personal interest in. Your ex-husband blocked my daughter's treatment? Arden felt a surge of anger heating his face, his voice rising. Why would he do that? What kind of person uses a sick child as revenge? Celine said quietly, her voice tight with controlled fury. He's been bitter since our divorce 3 years ago. He knows how personal the Lysera research is to me because of Amaris. We fought about it constantly during our marriage. He thought I was too emotionally invested, that I let my feelings about my sister cloud my business judgment. Her composed expression faltered for a moment, and Arden saw genuine pain flash across her features. I never imagined he would stoop to using patients as pawns in his vendetta against me. I thought, despite everything, he still believed in the company's mission. Arden struggled to process this information, his mind reeling. So if I hadn't sent that text by mistake, he would have continued blocking Nora's application, and I might never have known about it, Celine finished, her voice bitter. Corporate bureaucracy is very effective at burying things. He would have denied tomorrow's appeal with some clinical justification, and that would have been the end of it. You would have run out of options. The realization that his daughter's life had been caught in the crossfire of a corporate power struggle made Arden feel sick. That's monstrous. How can someone be so cruel? Yes, Celine agreed, her voice hard as steel. And he will be removed from the board by this time tomorrow. I've already called an emergency meeting for 8 a.m. I don't care if he is one of our founding board members. This is unforgivable. She looked at Arden with unexpected gentleness, her expression softening. But none of that matters for Nora. What matters is that she starts treatment immediately. I'm authorizing expedited processing of her case. We'll have her in the program by Monday. As Celine prepared to leave, she paused at the door, turning back to face him. The treatment program starts next week. I'll send a car for you and Nora on Monday morning. Her professional tone had returned, but something in her eyes had changed, a warmth that hadn't been there before. And Mr. Solace, about that text message, Arden winced again, feeling the embarrassment wash over him fresh. I'm so sorry. It was completely inappropriate, and I understand if you want to. It was the first genuine human communication I've received in months, she interrupted, surprising him with a small smile. Everyone is too intimidated to speak to me like a person. Your mistake was refreshing, honest. A hint of a smile touched her full lips, though perhaps save the kissing comments for after we've actually met properly. With that, she was gone, leaving Arden stunned in his doorway, watching her taillights disappear down the street. Had his mortifying text message error actually saved his daughter's life? And why did the notorious Ice Queen seem so different from her fearsome reputation? The next morning, Arden woke to find a sleek black car parked outside his house. The driver, an older gentleman in a crisp suit, delivered an envelope containing all the paperwork for Nora's admission to the treatment program, along with a handwritten note from Celine. Treatment starts Monday. Don't worry about transportation. A car will pick you up at 8 a.m. My personal cell is included if you have any questions. All costs are covered by the trial. S. When Arden told Nora she was starting the new medicine on Monday, her reaction broke his heart. Instead of excitement, her first response was worry, her small face creasing with concern. But Daddy, how will we pay for it? You said it costs more than our house. You said we couldn't afford it. He knelt beside her bed, taking her small hands in his, feeling how delicate her fingers had become. We don't have to worry about that anymore, sweetheart. Ms. Corin is making sure you get the medicine as part of a special program. It won't cost us anything. Nora's eyes widened, filling with tears. The pretty lady who knows about medicine? Is she going to be there on Monday? I think she might be, Arden said, surprised by his daughter's immediate attachment to Celine and feeling his own heart race at the possibility. Good, Nora declared with the certainty only children possess. I like her. She didn't talk to me like I'm a baby, and she smells nice, like the flowers Mommy used to grow in the garden. Jasmine, I think. Arden felt a lump form in his throat at the mention of Sarah, Nora's mother. In the 4 years since the car accident that took her life, Nora rarely mentioned her mother unprompted. That she would connect Celine to this precious memory felt significant somehow, like Sarah was giving her approval from wherever she was. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation and nervous anticipation. Arden cleaned the house, packed bags for the hospital, and tried not to let his hopes soar too high. He'd been disappointed too many times before. But Monday morning arrived bright and clear, and precisely at 8 a.m., a black car pulled up outside their house. To Arden's surprise, Celine herself stepped out, dressed in a more casual outfit than he'd seen her in before, tailored black pants and a simple blue blouse that complemented her bronze skin beautifully, her locks loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in her usual severe bun. "Good morning," she said, her smile warming her entire face as she approached. "I thought I'd accompany you both today, if that's all right. First days can be intimidating, and I wanted to make sure everything goes smoothly." Nora, who had been nervous all morning, immediately brightened at the sight of Celine. "You came. Daddy said you might, but I wasn't sure." Celine knelt to Nora's level, seemingly unconcerned about creasing her expensive clothes on the damp grass. "I wouldn't miss it, and I brought you something." She handed Nora a small gift bag wrapped in silver tissue paper. Inside was a beautiful journal with a night sky cover, constellations picked out in gold foil. "It's for recording your journey," Celine explained, her voice gentle. "When my sister was sick, she kept a journal of all her good days. It helped her remember that even during treatment, there were still beautiful moments. Would you like to do that too?" Nora clutched the journal to her chest, her eyes shining. "Thank you. I'm going to write about today because it's already a good day. You're here, and we're going to make me better." At the hospital, Arden expected Celine to hand them off to the medical staff and return to her corporate duties. Instead, she stayed through the entire first treatment, working remotely from her laptop during the 4-hour infusion, occasionally stepping out for urgent calls, but always returning to Nora's side. She explained each step of the process to Nora in terms the child could understand, answering every question with patience. When a nurse had trouble finding a vein for Nora's IV, Celine held the little girl's hand and told her stories about constellations to distract her from the discomfort. "See, there's Cassiopeia," she said, pulling up images on her phone. "The queen who was so vain she angered the gods. And there's Andromeda, her daughter." When Nora fell asleep during the infusion, Celine quietly covered her with a blanket from her bag, her touch gentle and maternal in a way that made Arden's heart ache. "You don't have to stay," Arden said softly as they watched Nora sleep, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. "I'm sure you have more important things to do, board meetings and all that." Celine looked at him with surprise, closing her laptop. "More important than this?" She shook her head, her locks shifting around her shoulders. "Arden, I've spent 20 years building a company to create treatments like this. Watching them actually help a child, seeing the hope in a father's eyes, that's the most important thing I could possibly do today. This is why I do everything else." 3 weeks later, Nora had started showing remarkable improvement. Her energy was returning, the persistent infections becoming less frequent, her skin regaining its healthy glow. Arden had just tucked her into bed when his phone buzzed with a text from Celine. "Treatment results looking excellent. Would you be available for dinner Friday to discuss Nora's progress? His finger hovered over the reply button. Their interactions had remained strictly professional during Nora's hospital visits, though he'd caught Selena watching him with an unreadable expression several times, and he couldn't deny his own growing feelings. Before he could respond, another text arrived. And to be clear, this is not just about Nora's treatment. I've been thinking about your smile too, Arden. What Arden didn't know as he typed his reply was that Celine was sitting in her car outside his house again, gathering the courage to ring his doorbell. The woman who had built an empire and a reputation for being untouchable was terrified of the feelings this single father and his brave daughter had awakened in her. Could she risk her heart after keeping it carefully guarded for so many years? Their first official date was at an upscale restaurant where Celine arrived wearing a simple blue dress instead of her signature power suit. "I haven't worn anything but business attire to dinner in years," she admitted, looking both elegant and somehow vulnerable as Arden held her chair. The deep blue fabric was stunning against her bronze skin. "You look beautiful," Arden said honestly, thinking how different she looked with her locks styled in an elegant updo, a few tendrils framing her face. Really beautiful. Over dinner, he learned about the real Celine, the woman who climbed mountains on rare vacations, who had a secret passion for astronomy that stemmed from camping trips with Amaris, and who had sacrificed a personal life to build a company dedicated to her sister's memory. "I became the Ice Queen because it was necessary," she confessed, her fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "The pharmaceutical industry isn't kind to black women who show emotion. Being cold and calculating was the only way to be taken seriously, to prove I belonged in rooms where people who looked like me were never supposed to be. I had to be twice as smart, twice as ruthless, twice as perfect." "And now?" Arden asked softly, reaching across the table. Celine's eyes met his, vulnerable and honest. "Now I'm terrified, because for the first time in 20 years, I care about something beyond my company. I care about what happens to Nora and to you. I look forward to Mondays because I get to see you both. I check my phone constantly hoping you've texted. I'm acting like a teenager, and it's frightening." The restaurant's soft lighting cast a warm glow on her face, highlighting the sharp angles of her cheekbones, the fullness of her lips. Arden realized she was letting him see beneath the armor, showing him the woman who had been hiding behind the Ice Queen persona all these years. "You know," he said, taking her hand fully now, feeling the warmth of her bronze skin against his. "Nora asks about you every day. She's convinced you're some kind of superhero disguised as a businesswoman. She draws pictures of you in her journal." Celine laughed, a sound so genuine it transformed her face, making her look years younger. "I wanted to be an astronaut when I was little. Before..." She didn't need to finish. "Before her sister got sick. Before her childhood dreams were replaced by a mission. Before she learned that the world could be cruel and unfair." As weeks turned into months, Celine became a regular presence in their lives. She brought Nora astronomy books and taught her to use the telescope she'd gifted her. She joined them for movie nights and Sunday pancake breakfasts. The woman who had once been known for making pharmaceutical executives tremble was now the same woman who sat on the floor building Lego sets with an increasingly healthy 8-year-old. The first time Celine stayed the night, she woke to find Nora standing beside the bed, studying her curiously. Celine had frozen, unsure of the protocol for this situation, but Nora had simply asked, "Are you going to make pancakes with us? Daddy makes them in funny shapes, but they all end up looking like blobs." That morning, Celine Corin, who had never cooked breakfast for anyone in her adult life, found herself in Arden's kitchen attempting to make a pancake shaped like Saturn. When it too turned into an unidentifiable blob, Nora's peals of laughter had filled the kitchen, and Celine had found herself laughing too, flour on her cheek and happiness bubbling in her chest. 6 months after the text message that changed everything, Arden and Nora moved into Celine's home. A beautiful house with a garden where Nora could play and a dedicated observatory dome on the roof. Corin Therabiotech had expanded their rare disease program, helping dozens of children like Nora access life-saving treatments regardless of their family's financial situations. "You know," Arden said one evening as they watched Nora running through the sprinklers in the backyard, her strength fully returned, her coils bouncing with each joyful leap. "That text was the best mistake I ever made." Celine laughed, a sound that had become wonderfully familiar. "I saved it, you know, in a special folder on my phone labeled The Beginning." She leaned against him, her bronze skin warm against his. "Though the reality of kissing you is much better than just wondering about it." 1 year to the day after the misdirected text, Arden knelt in their garden while Nora held a small velvet box. When Celine came home from work and saw them waiting, she froze, her hand flying to her mouth. "You changed our lives by showing up at our door that day," Arden said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved Nora, but you also saved me from a life of fear and loneliness. We love you, Celine. Will you marry us?" Nora bounced excitedly. "Please say yes. I already told everyone at school you're going to be my mom." Tears, something the business world would have sworn Celine Corin was incapable of, streamed down her face as she nodded, unable to speak for several long moments. Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the garden of their home with Nora as the flower girl, her natural coils adorned with fresh flowers, her healthy glow restored. Celine's assistant Tessa served as maid of honor, still amazed at the transformation in her boss. 2 years later, Celine gave birth to twins, a boy they named Michael after Arden's father, and a girl they named Amaris after Celine's sister. Nora, now a healthy 11-year-old with a passion for astronomy and medicine, took her role as big sister with the same determination she'd shown in fighting her illness. The treatment that had saved Nora's life received full FDA approval, and Corin Therabiotech established the Solace Initiative, ensuring that no family would be denied access due to financial constraints. Celine still ran the company, but with a new philosophy that balanced business success with human compassion. Their story became something of a legend among their friends and family. Sometimes what seems like our worst moment can open doors we never imagined, and second chances come in the strangest forms.